Okay. I'm going to also, the way this class is going to go is I'm going to also keep running notes, and at the end of the session I'm going to make this available for everybody to go over one more time. So yes, please feel free to ask any questions as and when you have, or if you have anything that you would like for everyone to, if you have anything to share with everybody, go ahead and do that. And yes, let's just have fun. The first thing, as I said, with any job, it comes with a set of words. So today's first word is software. What is a software? Everybody talks about the IT field, the software field. You hear the word software more often than you hear your name sometimes, probably. What does this really mean? And I'm sure all of you know it, but to define it formally, software is nothing but a piece of code created to achieve a certain functionality. That actually is the definition. So the meaning of this is, Roshan, yes, I am going to email you the running notes. Software is a piece of code created to achieve a certain functionality. So what do you mean by functionality? Functionality is nothing but a task. When you want to perform a certain task, and you need a piece of software that will do that for you. For example, what does Gmail do? Gmail is a software that lets you send, receive, and access your emails. In the same way, what is YouTube? YouTube is a software. So all these are, at the back end, they are actually pieces of code that help you achieve a certain target. They're actually aiming at making something available to the end user, which is you and me or anybody who is accessing the site. So that's software. Let's not just spend too much time on this because I understand this is too very basic. And the next one is domain. So how many times did any of you get asked, what domain are you working on, or what domain is your live project on, right? Domain is a word that actually intimidates most of us. This really intimidates me too, because when I go and attend an interview, anybody asks me, what are your domains? I feel like I haven't had enough domain knowledge. And what does this mean? But I have figured over the time that domain is nothing but a key business area. Domain is a key business area. To extend our Gmail example, Gmail, Yahoo Mail, everything, let's take some examples. These are all email clients. So when you look at them, they have different interfaces, I'm sure, like the way they look and the way they work might be slightly different. But the end of it, all of them are trying to make emailing easy for the end user. So email clients is nothing but a domain, a key business area. Similarly, we have Amazon or Walmart.com or any other shopping sites. These are online business sites. And then we have online banking, Bank of America and ICICI, whatever that is all banking. So when anybody says, do you have an experience in the banking domain? I think we all should say yes, because we all use the online banking feature, we all do transfers, we all send money, we all receive money, we all check the transactions. So in my opinion, we already have the basic domain knowledge. So this is a word that should not intimidate us anymore. The way I see it is, no matter what the application is or what anything does, the way this is every application has three things basically. One is the data entry or the input. The other is data manipulation. I'll explain what each one means in a little bit. And then data storage or retrieval or the output. What do I mean by this? Let's just try to understand this with a little bit of an example. I'm going to go into google.com and I'm going to search for Celsius to Fahrenheit converter. This is just to see how, the temperature converter. Now, I'll just enter number 10, just any value, and hit on the convert button. What is this doing? This is actually giving me an input. So, we have listed that everything has a data entry or an input. The data entry or the input parameter here is number 10. And this, edit box is letting us input the value in there. And the convert, when I hit the convert button, this is an aspect of the UI. When I hit, it invokes some programming language at the back end, which is nothing but the data manipulation part of it. And then at the end of it, something is retrieved. The reason why I took this example is because very simple. It just has one field. When I enter it and hit on the convert, it just comes out. Because this is an easy enough formula that we also can apply. It's very easy for us to grasp this concept. Every application, no matter how big or no matter how small, has these three components. You enter something, some processing happens at the back end, and something comes out as an output. So, no matter what the domain, no matter what anything else, irrespective of whatever technicalities we talk about, every application is these three things. Once we understand this, it is not so daunting to think in terms of, domain knowledge or anything else. So that's what I wanted to explain. And the next thing is, we'll talk about what is the technology. This is another question that you get asked a lot. When you say you are testing something, what is the technology is the next question. Technology is nothing but what programming languages are used, what databases are used, etc. So all these kind of, the technical building blocks that go into making a software, that's what is called technology. So we're not going to dwell too much upon them. So sometimes an application can be built on a Java platform using a DB2 backend or an Oracle database and, C platform. Anything is possible. But as a tester, I think that having that level of knowledge, just knowing that what database it sits on and, what your application, what language was used to develop it, a basic knowledge is enough. But other than that, we really don't need to dig a lot deeper into this aspect. And the next one is platform. What is the platform is another question. Platform is nothing but the environment on which, it's nothing but the environment on which a target system operates. This could be a Windows. So, for example, mine is a Windows-based computer and GoToTraining is if that's the application you're talking about. What environment is it operating on? It is operating on a Windows 7 machine. So that's what we mean by the platform. It could be Windows, Mac, Unix, anything. And the last word is testing. What does testing mean? Testing means, testing is an activity. We'll just define it formally first, and then we'll understand it with a lot of examples. Testing is an activity performed on a software. Because this is the context we are talking about, we'll keep it as software, to uncover errors. So leaving the formal definition aside, testing is an activity that we all do on a regular basis, every single day, in every single aspect of every single day contains some form of testing. I mean, I'm sure you all agree with me when I say this, because when you're picking out a new shirt or anything in the store, you just look at it and make sure it's all fine, and then only you buy it. What's that? That's nothing but testing. So everything, testing in a software world is a little bit more formal. It is a little more organized. But other than that, testing mostly is common sense. So we all think that we don't have prior knowledge of testing and how would we fare very well in the testing world. Really, when you look at it, as I've showed you with the centigrade, converter, how different is using this application from testing it? It is not very different. The only difference is in our minds. when you're using this application, you're going to use it with the confidence that when I hit the convert button, it is going to show me the right conversion. When it says 10 degrees centigrade is equal to 15 degree Fahrenheit, how many of us will actually use the formula and check whether it has done the conversion right or not? That's not, we don't do that because we assume that this software will do it for us. But the only thing different when we are using this software as a tester is we are going to check that. We are going to check if it is converting it right or not. We are going to check if the format is right. So the only difference between using and testing is in our mindset. When you're using the software, you're going on with the assumption that it's going to work. But when you're testing a software, your mind is always looking for errors. You don't believe in it. You are skeptical. So that is one of the first characteristics we need to develop as testers. When a feature is presented to you, you have to think about what are all the things that can go wrong. That is how we are going to uncover defects. So never think that you don't have prior testing experience. You do, but you didn't think that it could go wrong. When it did, you just thought that something was off or you didn't know how to use the software. A lot of times I do. Sometimes last week when I was doing an ICICI transfer, it just kept failing. I didn't know what happened. So I called the customer care. I asked them, what am I doing wrong? And they told me it does not work on Google Chrome. So the point is, it's easy to overlook and think that the software is God. But the point is, as a tester, you have to get that away from your mind. You have to develop that skepticism and think that it's not going to work. That's the best way to uncover errors. So as I said, again, back to the definition, testing is an activity performed on software to uncover errors. Why are we trying to uncover errors? That's the next question. So why do we test? Why do we test at all? Does anybody want to venture an answer? All right. I'll go on with this one. The reason we test is we want to make sure, first of all, we want to make sure it's error-free. To deliver customers, I have some answers here. Karuvasaran says to make the software error-free, yes. And the second one, Samir says to deliver customer-satisfied product. And Karuvasaran again says to minimize the bugs. Yes, your reasons are all correct. But the testing activity by itself does not minimize the bugs. It will only identify it. Testing can only identify bugs. It will identify defects. It does not fix them. So we are trying to, Samir, your answer is really correct, to deliver customer satisfied product. That's true. Because when you know what's working and what's not working in your application, and sometimes a lot of applications come out with a list of known errors, right? That's because when the customer knows that this is not going to work, he's not going to put his confidence into the product and be disappointed. So one of the main reasons testing is done is for customer satisfaction and also to estimate to what level the application actually satisfies the requirements. And it's like testing is, why the main reason why I think we have to test a software is, think of this scenario. What happens when you just drive on the road without any rules? You're just going to end up in accidents. And it's the same scenario with any software also. When you have a software, when you don't test it, and when you just send it on to the users, who are going to find the errors? It's the end users who are eventually going to find it. And when your product is not the way it's supposed to be, nobody is going to come back and use it. So testing is actually one of the best value. And think of us as the police of the software world. So that's how I see it. So these are some of the reasons why we test. And why do you think we need separate testing teams? Anybody wants to try to answer this question? So what I mean by this question is, when somebody is developing a software, how come they don't test it by themselves? Do you think they do test it or they don't? And if they do, how come we need to come up as a separate software testing team? Why is there need for an independent software testing team? All right. The reason for that is, when you develop your own software, you are going to have a lot of confidence in it. Samir, you're right again. Developer would not find more bugs in his program. Yes. And Rasika says it's second set of files. Both of you are really right on. The reason is, developers, as Samir says, they wouldn't find more bugs. The reason why they wouldn't find more bugs is, when somebody comes, you will not build a product thinking that you're doing it wrong. So there is every possibility that you're going to overlook a lot of things. So that's why developers don't make a very good testing team. And the other reason is, let me just write this down. Other reason is, you will have a second set of eyes, as Rasika says. That's true. It's not just a second set of eyes. We spend all our time from the start of a project in understanding what the user wants and how the system is being built and what the system looks like on the day it's being tested. So we are spending a lot of time on understanding this entire concept. So we are spending a lot of time understanding the application, understanding how it works. We are actually using a structured process that has, a more chance of success at uncovering a lot of defects, or coming out and saying that, hey, this feature is completely not how it's supposed to build. So that's why we as a software testing fraternity have emerged. So dedicated teams are more likely to spend a lot of time more closely. So these are just some of the main reasons why there are dedicated test teams. So we are all attending this course because we all want to be testing professionals, right? So what do you think the tester's job includes? What do you think we do on a daily basis? And you're right. Nisha says we identify the errors and report. Correct. Let me note that down. It says we identify bugs, check requirements are met. Right. So apart from these, the reason why a tester's job, apart from these, a tester's job mainly includes a lot of documentation. On a day-to-day basis, we actually go through so much of documentation that I don't think any other software team does. The reason, I will tell you the reason for this. For example, I'm testing gmail.com today, and I did not encounter any bugs. So at the end of the day, how do I show that I did any work at all? Because even if I did not test, I'm not going to get any defects. Or if I test and the product is really super, I'm still not going to get any defects. So how are we to show our work? How are we to show a structure? And on a web page, if I just keep clicking on every link I see, on an average, there are like a lot of links, right? If I just keep clicking on things like that, how do I know what I have already checked and I did not? So to track, to track and to make sure that the testing activity in itself is adding value to the entire project, there is a lot of documentation involved. We really write documents like nobody else does. We write and we review. So tester's job includes documentation, tester's job includes reviewing, tester's job also includes a lot of meetings. We actually report the bugs to everybody concerned. It's like, as I said, we from the business teams to the developers to the support teams, we actually spend a lot of time in meetings trying to let everybody know on the progress, trying to update everybody on the quality of the product. We are the ones who raise red flags. We are the ones who tell whether an application is a go or a no go. So a tester's job includes a lot of meetings. A tester's job also includes a lot of planning. And as everybody said, we spend a lot of time identifying bugs, checking requirements are met. Yes. Nisha has a question. She is asking if we review our documentation or review the requirements. Nisha, actually we do both. Once we create the document, we need to verify if you created it or not, created it right or not, because that's the only way we can make sure that the document is doing what it's supposed to do, right? So we review both the requirement and we review both the document. We review requirements and documentation. I hope I answered your question. And then Amir says, we create test plan, test case, test strategy. Yes, that all comes under the documentation. We create test cases, test plan, test strategies. We create defect reports. So the next thing is reporting. We do a lot of reporting. So we go through a really big number of Excel sheets on a daily basis. So we do all that. And then next thing is, yeah, I think this is most of the things that we do on a daily basis. We also provide support for UAT and training for the end users, but we'll come to it when we are discussing the UAT part. And the next thing is, we all have decided to join this class. So let's just reiterate why a tester, why have we chosen to become a tester, and why is it a wise idea to become a tester? For one, testing does not need a lot of technical knowledge. Testing does not need a lot of technical knowledge. What I mean when I say this is, you really don't have to know, what class they used in the Java code, or what trigger got triggered in the database. This level of technical knowledge is not very important for us. So a lot of non-computer science background, but this is a wonderful career opportunity for like non-computer science students and other professionals. And as I was trying to show you the difference between using and testing, it's actually easy to learn, because all you have to do is apply a little bit of common sense plus some structure plus a little bit of the application knowledge, and you're good to go. And these days there are lots of jobs actually. There are many job opportunities for testing, and not many colleges offer it as a full-time course. So there is a scarcity of people with the testing knowledge already there. So you guys all definitely have an edge over that. And typically testing is an art I really call it an art, but it's a trade that you can learn sometime in over a 4 to 6 weeks time. And of course this depends on how much time you're spending on it on a daily basis and things like that, but 4 to 6 weeks is a good time for you to understand all the concepts and be work ready actually. And last, the pay is not bad. All right then. So now that you've all decided to become a quality professional, what are the qualities that you need to have to become successful here? One thing is, you should have very good communication. When I say communication, I mean both written and verbal. You should be able to write very, very clear documents, and when you're in meetings, you should be able to express yourself very, very clearly. I cannot emphasize this point enough. Good communication is the key for being a good tester. Not just a tester, for being a good, IT professional. It's really important, because on a daily basis you're going to write a lot of emails, you're going to write a lot of reports, you're going to write lots of test cases, test plans, test strategies. So it really helps if you're able to express yourself very well. So communication is the key. And another thing that I want to, emphasize through this class is participate in the session. I really encourage you all to participate in the session. We are going to have a Q&A, so go ahead and talk about that. If you have a topic that you want to discuss, if you want to share that with your team, let me know, and I will, arrange for you to present something to the team. So again, communicate, be open, talk about it, share your experiences, share your thoughts with everybody. And the next thing a tester needs to have is attention to detail. You really need to pay attention to the small details. As I showed you in this slide, I really don't think if this point is at the right place or not. It could be 500.00 or it could be 5.00. As a user, I really don't care. I just believe in what the site tells me. But as a tester, you have to pay attention to where that point is coming, what it means, how long it took for you to get the result. These are some of the details that you need to keep in mind. So always pay attention, never ever overlook something. The next thing is you need to have, a basic technical knowledge of the app you're going to test. You need a basic technical knowledge, and then qualities of, yes. And another downside, a little disadvantage to becoming a tester is a lot of our work is very repetitive. We just keep on, executing the same test cases over a couple of cycles. Then there is regression testing, and, we just keep testing things over and over again, or we keep looking at documents over and over again, making changes, reviewing here and there. So at times it could get really boring. Frankly, it really gets boring after a couple of days. But the thing is, you can keep it fresh by, there is a scope for a lot of creativity in testing. So as long as you keep that going, and we'll see how, we'll get to the point. As and when we're going through this class, I'm not going to create templates and, make us fill details into it. We are going to create templates. We are going to see how we can make things, smoother, more interesting, more creative. So we'll learn all that going forward, but I believe that every tester should have a little bit of creativity in them, and creativity is something that you could build on it, and as soon as you start having fun with testing, I'm sure it's going to come naturally. So these are some of the qualities that I think a tester should have. So the next topic is going to be the main topic of the day. So these are some of the So today we have covered some of the non-technical questions like why do we have to be a tester and things like that. And today's vocabulary aspect included software, domain, technology, platform, and testing. So is there anything else that you want me to talk about, the basics, before we move on to our main topic, which is the software development life cycle? But that's a very interesting topic. So before we move on, if you have any questions or if you have something to say, I'll just wait for 2 minutes. How do we get domain language? What do you mean by domain language, Roshan? Are you asking about the domain expertise? Domain expertise is something that you will get once you work on it. But as I said, working is not very different from using an app. Let's take the example of an ICICI Bank website. What is the term QA? Samir, let me just answer this question on the domain knowledge, and I'll get to your I'll get to your question. Okay. So let's get back to the ICICI.com website. So when you are using the ICICI.com website or the Bank of America online website or any other banking website, for example, you will have a couple of main things, right? You will perform, let's write that down, online banking. What do? You perform transfers to other accounts. You pay your credit card bill. You check statements probably, or you cancel a check payment, something like that, right? Apparently I'm spelling check wrong, but it doesn't matter. And the next thing, it might calculate interest and things like that. So as an end user, you know that it's calculating an interest. You know that it can cancel a check payment. You know that it sends the statement. The only additional domain knowledge you will know when you're working on on this online banking application is what is the interest percentage or what is the formula they use. Right? That is a level of knowledge, a little bit advanced knowledge you will get when you work on the domain itself. But most of the applications, most of the sites or even Windows based applications, they are created keeping an end user who is not very technical in mind. So the thing is, to get the domain knowledge expertise, you really don't have to work on it. All you need to know is understand what kind of business you're dealing with. So did I answer your question? But as you say, the depth knowledge, you will only get it when you work on it. But to start with, to get into something new, don't get too hung up on the domain word, because it really means just a business area. It doesn't mean you have to know the ins and outs of something. Not really. All right, I'll just move on to the next question. Samir has a question. What is the term QA? QA stands for quality assurance in general. Quality assurance, there are two things to testing. One is the prevention activities and another one is the correction, detection activities. So this topic we're actually going to discuss in detail tomorrow, but for now I'll give you a general overview. Quality assurance means testing activities are actually prevention and detection. Prevention is nothing but the kind of steps you take to make sure that the defect does not come. And detection is nothing but once there is a product, you're going to test it with the intention of finding the defects. That means you're trying to detect a defect. So quality assurance is a combination of these two. Detection by itself is just testing. So testing is, what is testing as we've talked about? We are just going to check it and look at an application and see if there are defects. We're trying to find if there are any defects. That's nothing but you're trying to detect a defect, right? So testing is just the detection. Prevention is nothing but being involved in the project from the beginning where it starts till the time it comes into the tester's hand or probably goes into the production, making sure through the, sometimes we'll discuss this in detail, but the kind of prevention activities plus the detection, that's what is QA. QA is nothing but the complete package. Great. Next thing is Nisha, how well should I know Excel? Excel is again a very simple tool that we all have, right? Everybody has access to Excel. You do need to know a little bit about it, not too much, but as and when we are going through this class, we will use Excel a lot and you will get an idea of it. And in case you, anything, if you have any questions, you can always ask. But most of these are, data entry and data manipulation tools, which are really, really easy to use. So you really don't need advanced knowledge into Excel, but a basic knowledge will do. Roshan, you have a question. Is there a difference between QA and QC? Yes, there is a lot of difference between QA and QC. The intention of QA and QC is the same. You are trying to deliver a quality product, but the methods QA and QC follow are different. As I said, quality control is finding a defect once the defect happens. Quality assurance is preventing that the defect never happens. Both of them use different tools to achieve, their in target, but we will see how that's done. We're going to move on. Amir, are we going to learn how to create status reports? Yes, we are going to learn how to create status reports. We are going to learn how to send status reports in an email, because that's what we all the testers do at the end of the day. We send out reports on a very regular basis. So we're going to learn how to do that. We're going to create test plans. We're going to create test cases. We're going to do it all. So, is there anything else before we move on? Also, do you guys need a break? Because the next topic is going to be SDLC, and it's quite an important topic. So, if you guys need a break, we can just break for 5 minutes and come back. Okay. It's 7:45 for me now. I'll meet you back in 5. Okay. Hello? Is everybody able to hear me? Okay, cool. Kalvasaran, you asked a question about VB knowledge. We'll talk about that at the end of the class because I'm about to start a software development lifecycle topic. So software development lifecycle is a very unique, is a wonderful topic to start with, this journey, because this topic will give us an insight of what all goes into the project development, which also includes testing. And you will see what are the people, who are the people involved, and what happens at each step. What are the inputs and outputs that keep coming and going along. So this is a wonderful topic, and this is also called. There are different models, different ways in which software is developed within an organization. There are models like linear. Let me write that down. There are different SDLC models. SDLC stands for Software Development Lifecycle. There are different models. There are linear, waterfall, agile, and there's also a spiral model. But if you ask me, a theoretical knowledge of all these models is not very important. You just need to know what a certain project is following, which mostly is the model that we're going to discuss now. And the one that is coming into, that's getting popular in the recent time is Agile. We'll discuss about Agile in like fourth or fifth session, because for that you really need an understanding of what happens where and how things go on. So for now, we'll just understand. We'll just try to discuss the linear model, the model that is most prominent, that everybody uses. At least I have used in most of my projects. So there are different stages. We'll start with the phase initiate. The first phase in SDLC is initiate. So with every phase, we will discuss what is the input, what is the output, who are involved, and yeah, let's just discuss these 3 points and keep adding on whenever we have anything. So in initiate phase is nothing but it's the phase where a company or a client comes up with a requirement to build a software. For example, I am Walmart.com, and so far I'm Walmart. So far I've been selling products in my store. Suddenly I think that there should be an option for the users to buy something online. So I approach, because I don't build software, I need to approach somebody who really does. So this is the phase. Initiate is the phase where a client approaches a software service provider with a requirement. Requirement is nothing but a problem to solve. Basically, he has the problem of being able to launch the online site, and he has come for the software to a software service provider for a solution. So basically, this state is the initiate state. So the inputs are, you have a problem to solve. Example, setting up a online shopping site. That's my problem to solve. And the output is usually, and the reason why I'm trying to do this is, the reason why I'm trying to set up an online site is because I want to improve my business. I want to venture into another area. So a client comes up with a requirement, what the client wants to do, and how he thinks the software service provider can help him. He comes up with a problem to be solved. And the next step is the output. What happens here and who are involved? Basically, first let's see who are involved. A client is involved, and a software service provider is involved, and usually the top level IT professionals are involved. This includes business analysts. Business analysts are the ones who have an understanding of both the business. That means they understand, in our case, in the Walmart's case, they understand the business. That means that is the, the grocery shopping business. And they also understand how that can be translated into software systems. So they have an equal understanding of the client's business and the software service provider's business. So the business analysts, and then every project. So this whole, every project has a project manager. He is the one who overlooks all the departments that are in it. So we will have a project manager involvement. So these are the people who is involved. So what is decided at the end of it? At the end of it, scope is decided. For example, I'm a person who's trying scope. What does the scope mean? It's a very interesting word. We're going to use it very, very often. What scope means is, for example, I am the one who wants to build a software that will help people write their text into it. For example, like the Microsoft Word. I come up with the requirement that I need Microsoft Word. I approach a software service provider and tell them that I need a software that will write text, basically a text editor. So if I come up with the expectation that the software text editor should write what is in the user's mind, can it really do it? No, because it is an expectation that is really not meaningful, that cannot be translated into the computer's world. There are many things like that. There can be so many requirements that cannot be really translated into the computer world. So the scope is the place where all the IT people, at least as far as we are concerned, all the IT people will decide on what requirements of the customer that we can fulfill. Yes, Samir says, basically Samir is right. How to fulfill a customer's requirement? Yes, the customer comes up with say 10 requirements, and you decide that only 2 or 3 of them are going to be translated into, can be translated into the computer's world. That becomes your scope. What are you taking up out of all the problems that the customer is? What is being considered for development? What have you decided to build? That is the scope. And at the end of this, and the scope is defined in a scope document usually. And other decisions like, budgeting, scheduling, how, what is the timeline that the client is looking for. If he wants it in the next 1 month, and if it's not possible, there's some sort of, discussions that need to go on so that everybody comes onto the common ground. So, and then about money also. Budgeting is definitely talking about money. So all the budgeting, scheduling, and the scope are the 3 things that get decided here. Ideally, if you are aiming at a software being bug free from the beginning, a QA involvement has to be there in the initiate phase itself. But in the real world, the QAs are not really involved here. So only these people are involved: the client, the software service providers, top IT professionals, and business analyst, and a PM. Project manager is the one who is responsible for the entire project, irrespective of whether it is the development team or the QA team or any other team involved. PM is the person who is the absolute boss. And the next phase, this is the first phase of a software development lifecycle. The next phase is define. So the input to this stage is always, when you move on to the next phase, the input becomes the output of the previous phase. So the input for this phase is the scope document. So based on what the higher level management has decided to build, who is involved in this phase? Let's see who is involved. In this phase, the PM is involved, as always, and the business analysts are involved, and the QA teams are involved. For now, let's assume that QA team is the testing team, because we haven't yet differentiated how QA is different from QC. We will come to that later, but for now, all the testing teams are called QA teams in general. So the testing team gets involved. So depending on the scope documents, all the people involved will make decisions like, now they will try to gather the requirements. How do they gather the requirements? They gather the requirements by talking to the SMEs. the subject matter experts. The people from whom this request has come, they try to talk to them. There will be a lot of meetings going on back and forth in this stage. They talk to them and they try to see what is the need for a requirement like this, for a, what is the problem that they are presenting, and how can how can you get more information about it. If you do not know the background information, you might build a wrong product. So in this phase, all the requirements are gathered. So the output is a requirement document. And also, yes, you also decide on the best way to pass out the requirements. So this comes in the next stage, Samir. Possible ways to solve the requirement, that comes in the next phase where you are trying to design. So for now, they are going to gather the requirements and understand the requirements. And in this stage, they also make a project plan, because already you know how much time you can take and you know how many requirements you have. So you will be able to roughly guess how much, what should include in the project. So, a high level project plan is made. So it does not mean that because I made a project plan in this phase, that's just chosen. No. All these documents, they keep going through a lot of updates and they keep going through a lot of changes, as we move on through this process. Yami, so SME stands for subject matter expert. Subject matter expert is a person from the client side, typically from the client side. Sometimes he could be from the software service provider side also, but it usually is the client people, and they have extensive knowledge about what they're trying to build. So, for example, I can give you an example. I am a bank teller. I am the teller inside the bank, and inside my computer, I just when I scan a credit card, it does not show me whether it's a gold card, it's a credit card, it's a platinum card or whatever, and I have to manually set that. If there are 10 tellers who think that this is being an inconvenience, they come back to you and tell you that they need this functionality. They tell you that the system should be able to auto identify what kind of card this is. At that phase, the subject matter experts are going to be the tellers, the people who have extensive knowledge in that area. So yes, coming back to the SDLC, the output of a defined phase is you define a project plan. This will include what requirements you're going to develop, and when are you going to test, what are the development timelines, and all the infrastructure needs are also defined here. Infrastructure in the sense, do you need any servers? How many computers do you need, and how many, what kind of network are you looking at? That sort of, all the hardware related decisions are also made here. And what else? Also, the QA team will actually start making a high-level test plan, because there are the requirements already. So we will try to fit in a high-level test plan. This will not contain any of the day-to-day details because it's not clear yet. We didn't get there yet. The test plan does not contain a lot of QA information at this point. The test plan will contain information like how many resources you need, what are the timelines we are looking at. So let me write it down. We are actually resources, timelines, and scope. What are we testing? How are we testing? If the testing team has any requirements, they're going to put it out there so that everybody knows, and you can get it when you need it. So that's the define phase. So define phase is where you are trying to identify the requirements and pretty much freeze them. The reason for the QA's involvement at the requirements define phase is, as I gave you the example of Microsoft Word, you cannot expect Word to write what's in your mind. It will only help you write what's in your mind in a more efficient way. So if the client, say for example, in the initiate phase, the client came up with a requirement that the Word should be able to write it for you, and the business team, I mean, they are usually clever enough, but if at all they have agreed that yes, we are going to make sure that Microsoft Word will write what's in your mind, It is the job of the QA team in this phase to say that that is something that is not possible. So the QA team also, so this is how QA team can prevent errors by being involved in the process from the beginning and making sure everything is going fine. So that's why the QA team's involvement is there from the beginning. And the next phase is the design phase. Design phase, again, for the design phase, the inputs are the project plan, the requirements. So the requirements, project plan, always for the next phase, the outputs of the previous phase become the inputs. QA plan, and the requirement documents. And the output of this phase, let's say who is involved first. In this phase, all these people are involved again. The PM, the BA, the QA teams are all involved. Other than these, the developers are also involved. The people who are actually going to build the system, they are involved. So what's going to happen here is the requirements that are gathered in the define phase are translated into a software world. For example, if the user requirement is that only registered users should be able to shop on Walmart.com. If that is the requirement, if that is the scenario that the client came up with, how do you enforce that on an online shopping website? You can enforce that by creating the username and password, by asking the user to register explicitly. So how do you translate that? How do you translate that into the computer world? You need a page, you need a username, you need a password, you need some fields to fill in the basic details. So that level of translation happens here. So what are the fields that we need? So all these things are done here. So that's what the development team does. And what does the QA do in the design phase? We do a lot of things in the design phase. What we try to do is the QA does not necessarily do this translation. But once the translation happens, there is a document called functional design document that gets created. So based on the functional design document, the QA team will start writing their test cases. At least the test scenarios. There is a difference between test scenario and test case, which I'll explain shortly. So Roshan, to answer your question, QA team gets involved here because as the development and QA processes, if you look at it, they happen in parallel, because if you are not going to write test cases until the whole system is built, you are not going to be able to test it as soon as it's done, right? So you need to be doing your QA activities in parallel so that you can catch up. Our jobs are very reactive. QA job is very, very reactive. Unless you have the product, you're not going to be able to test it. That doesn't mean there are no background, there is no background preparation that you have to come up with, which you do. So that's what you do in the design phase. While the development team is translating all these requirements and coming up with a functional document, you are going to write the test cases in test scenarios in parallel. I will explain you the difference between test scenario and test case in a while. But for now, all the requirements are gathered. And the next thing is technical design document is prepared. What is the technical design document? So we've seen that on the page you need so-and-so fields and everything, that kind of decisions we make. What is how is the technical design document different from a functional testing document? Technical design document is what talks about the code. For example, I need a Java class, some Java class. I'm not. So if you have some Java class that you need to include to be able to achieve a certain result, that's the kind of details that are defined here. So all the programming language details and DB hardware, DB DB map, database mapping, etc. are defined in this. We do not really need this document much from a QA perspective, but typically in my teams, I usually encourage the team to go through this document once, because not only does it add to your knowledge base, it also helps you see how things get translated at the back end. Who will create the technical document, Amir? The development team will prepare that. Because developers are the ones who have the maximum knowledge on how a particular programming language or how a database works. They are the ones who are going to create this. And then there is another interesting concept. Use cases are created here. Just the way we have test cases, development team has their use cases. What is a use case? Let's look at it for a second. Okay. So this is the template for a use case. I'm going to fill this out along, in this class, because everybody gets to see how this works. Every use case has a use case. Typically, this is done by the development team. The reason why I'm doing this is so that we'll understand how how this is useful for test case writing. So every use case has a ID, any number. Version, this is because you want to make sure you version control it. And then if they have a status field. Is it a draft? Is it a proposed requirement? Or is it approved? Or is it rejected? These are nothing but different phases. Draft is nothing but initially you've written something. Proposed is nothing but you've pretty much finalized the use case, but you're just trying to, propose it to somebody. That means you're just showing it off as a review. If everything is fine, use case is not the same as requirement. Use case, a requirement is just typically a 1 or 2 liner. For example, a requirement for this, let's say, is log into Gmail. So the requirement that we are going to work on right now is log into Gmail. Let's see how the use case for log into Gmail looks like. So select a status. I'm going to select the status as draft because it's the first time I'm trying. Release ID is nothing but, the details like is it the version 1 of the software, is it release 2, that kind of details, not important. I'm just going to write my name. And then title, this is just a description. Use case for gmail.com login. Who are the primary and secondary actors? The actors are the persons who are going to use this functionality. Who are the actors in this case? The end users, because the Gmail users. And if you really need more clarity, you can say the ones who already have an account. Registered users, yes, perfect word. The normal flow. Usually this section of this page is usually bulleted points so that it's very easy for everybody to understand, and it's usually the way it is supposed to work. Since Gmail is already created, when I write these steps, it will look very simple. But imagine when you're trying, we are able to visualize. We are trying to visualize a system that does not exist. So at this stage, whatever steps I give, the more detailed I specify the steps, the more detailed the system that's going to be built is going to come out. So first is launch Gmail. So try to imagine that the system does not exist yet. And then I will enter the username. I will enter the password. And then I hit on sign in or whatever, login, I'm not sure. So just hit on that. So this is what the user is supposed to perform and what's supposed to happen. So result, let's keep it as result. Samir, yes, you can include the step of launch browser. You can keep it as detailed as you like, or uh, as concise as you like. But since this is a document that developers use, they don't need that level of detail. So, but there's no harm in being detailed. So go ahead if you like that. So the result should be the user should be logged in, should see the inbox and other options, whatever they are. So something like that. The alternate flow is usually if the first one username is incorrect. What happens if the username is incorrect and you do that and you hit on sign in? Error will be displayed. You can give the details of what the error message should contain. So and so error message. For example, I give a password incorrect. So basically, a use case will have all the steps that a user need to perform to be able to achieve a certain thing. It defines who are the users who are acting on it. It will also define the alternate flows. So that kind of use case documents are created in the design phase. So you will have, because we have a Gmail already, we know how to use it. We are not able to conceptualize this, but since imagine a system that does not exist. So this level of detailed documents are created in the design phase. And these are the documents that we are going to use as inputs to create our test scenarios. For example, let's talk about the test scenario right away. This is the use case. Once I get this use case, how am I going to write a test scenario? Test scenario is nothing but a one-line statement of what you are going to test. For example, in the launch Gmail, check if gmail.com logs in a registered user when right username and password are entered. And again, another test scenario, we usually test cases. What are you doing? Amir, yes, use cases are an excellent input to create test cases. That is the correct way of doing it. The incorrect way would be, checking the application that is checking the incomplete application that is in a developer's, environment and writing your test cases based on that. That is incorrect because use case documents also go through a lot of reviews. This is just the creation phase. In the define phase, you will only create it, but they go through a lot of reviews and, they are kept current, they are kept accurate. So creating test cases from use cases is the right method. Check if gmail.com logs in a registered user when a right username and password are entered. If you notice here, we are not giving detailed steps of how to achieve this result, how to achieve this point number one. What we are trying to do is we are trying to define what we are going to test, a high level aim, if you may call it, a high level aim of your testing activity. And the next one could be check with incorrect username. It login fails. Or you could check for incorrect password, login should fail. So on and so forth. So this level of high level, this kind of high level definitions of what you're going to test is what you'll create as a QA team in the design phase. Samir, we'll talk about mind maps later, but for now let's just continue with the SDLC. There is no one right way or wrong way to doing anything. Whether the use case is right or mind maps is right, no, there is no right or wrong way. They are just two different ways of doing one thing. So nothing is an alternate to anything. They are just two different methods. Also in this case, the already created test, project plans and test QA plans are reviewed, and if there are any changes, they are made. So you update a test plan, because at this stage you will have more detail, and then you will update a QA plan. Also the requirements to a certain extent, if there are changes. The next phase is the build phase. Build phase is where the actual development happens. So the input is all these things that we have defined. And who is going to work on this? The developers. The dev team will start working on creating the code. And QA team will start writing the test cases. Test cases, that means the detailed steps and everything. And then we define the pass or fail criteria for each test case. In detail, we'll write about the QA templates, like how are the reports going to be sent, what are the templates you're going to use the test case, how are you going to create the test case, what are the fields that you need in your test cases, are you going to use any tools? These are the kind of things that you will discuss here. You will decide here. And then in the build phase, who is involved? Development teams are writing code and QA teams are writing the test cases. The input is all these things and the output is code. At this stage, the code is unit tested. What is unit testing? This is a concept that we are going to learn in detail tomorrow. But for now, unit testing is nothing but, see, for example, you have one functionality, but then a single person, if he keeps working on one functionality, it takes time, it takes effort, and that might not always be the right way. So sometimes everything is just divided. All the code, who has to work on what is divided among the testers, and each tester tests if his piece of code is working right or not. Testing just one little piece of code at a time, one block of a code to make sure it's working fine or not, is the unit testing phase. And this is typically done by the developers. Also, to a certain level, an integration testing is done. Integration testing is again testing those basic blocks of code, whether they are working, when they are combined together, whether they are working fine, whether they are interacting fine with one another. That's what is done in the integration testing. Both integration testing and unit testing, they are performed by the developers, and that includes testing the code at a very minute level. And it's also called white box testing. White box testing, it's also called white box testing. Typically, we testers do not get involved in the white box testing. And the next phase is the test phase. This is the phase where we are the primary. Our testing is the primary action. So the testing team is prominent here. And in all these phases, usually in the build phase and the design phase, usually in the build phase, BA involvement is not so much. But the PM and the BS, they always overlook all the work that's going on. PM and BA. Roshan, unit sanity and smoke testing, they are not the same. Sanity and smoke testing are actually kind of testing which are more like system testing. They are black box testing methods. We'll talk about them in a very detailed way tomorrow in tomorrow's session. But for now, unit testing is something that is done by the developers. It involves testing the code. It's also called white box testing. Sanity testing and smoke testing are the things that are done by the QA team. So they don't involve checking the code or anything. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. So the testing phase, who is involved? Obviously. So the input is the code that we get here after the integration, right? Code after integration and after integration testing is done. So this code that comes to us after integration and after this is called a build, and the build is deployed into the QA environment. So since we have come to this point of the environment, we'll discuss what environment is. Environment is nothing but a kind of replica of the of the conditions that the software is going to work in once it gets released outside to the real people. So developers have their own environment, which is a copy of how of how it's going to work when it goes outside, and the QA team also has a copy. So we are going to test the application in conditions that are close to the real time. So there are three environments basically. Three environments. One is the development environment. So for easy understanding, think of it as three separate machines. One for development, one for testing, and one for the real time. The real time is not with us, with the actual user, but we will try to mimic the production or the actual conditions for the user in the QA and the dev side, so that we know how the application is going to behave. So there is a development environment, there is a QA environment, and there is a production environment. Production environment is the real-time environment. QA environment is the environment where we will test, and the development environment is where the users develop. Virtual user environment. Samir, is that a question? Did you want to know what virtual user environment is? Yes, that's another. So virtual user environment is another environment, but that is just specialized for people who use a virtual client. So it's not applicable for everybody. In general, we have only these three major environments. Sometimes there is a staging environment, but we will get to that when we come to the execution phase. Right now, that is too much of information, so we'll get to that when we come to the test execution phase. So basically, there are three different environments. This phase happens in the QA environment. And this happens in the dev environment. And in the test phase, what do we do? As we all know, we are the ones who are going to be mostly involved. So we will test the product. Testing the product is what happens here. So the test cases that were built earlier, the test team is going to execute it. So test execution happens. So in parallel, we are going to report, and then we are also going to track, right? The code is the input, and also the input is the test plan. We are going to act only according to the test plan. What a test plan is like our roadmap. So we are going to follow that. And also in the test phase, there is another phase called the UAT. UAT also happens. UAT is nothing but user acceptance testing. User acceptance testing is done by the users. Users are people who have actually, the people who have actually requested for this system to be built in the first place. So those are the users who are going to test the built application after the QA team is done with their work. Though. Once the QA team is done with their work, then the UAT happens. Amir, what do you mean by AUT? AUT is application under test in general. Application under test is anything that you are testing, the product. Yes. UAT is a testing phase. User acceptance test. UAT is done by, no, UAT is not done by testers. UAT is done by the real users. Users are the people who requested for the software to be built. The power users actually. We were talking about the Bank of America tellers, right? They are the ones who are going to test this because they are the target audience. They are the ones who have requested for the product in the first place. So since these users are not, sometimes they are not very, well versed with the computer world. So to facilitate that, QA teams actually get very, very actively involved in UAT. Sometimes this involves training the end users. We will train the end users on how to use this particular software so that they will be able to test it. So basically, QA team acts as a supporting team for a UAT. So in the test phase, UAT happens. Once the UAT also passes and everybody is okay, let's see who is involved here. QA team is involved and the actual users are involved. The dev team is involved because anytime we find a defect, it is the development team to address that issue. So the development team is involved. The business analysts are involved. The PMs are involved. And who else is involved? The people who are deploying the code, the support team usually, the people who maintain the databases and everything, they are also involved. The support teams are involved. So after all this, the output is a tested product, a product that is ready for release. If everything goes fine. If it doesn't, it will just go back to the process of, the bugs getting fixed and coming back to the test team for testing. So the output of this stage is the tested product which is ready for release. The last stage is deployment. Deployment is nothing but launching Yemi, I'll answer your question in just 1 minute. Let's just finish the deploy phase. In the deploy phase, the tested product gets deployed to the real world. So who is involved here? None of us anymore. It's just up to the user now. So this happens in the production environment. So let's just recap everything from the beginning. Initiate is a phase where the client comes up with a problem to the software service provider asking them to build a software for them. So at this phase, the client, the software service provider, the top level IT professionals, the business analysts and the PM, they work on these requirements and they build a scope document. They also decide what are the budgeting and scheduling features. The next stage is the define phase. In the define phase, the PM, BA, QA team, they all get involved and using the scope documents as an input, they gather the requirements from the SMEs, they create a requirement document, they develop a project plan, they also decide on the infrastructure needs and the QA team will now start planning its tests. At this level, it is it's very high level, so you'll only decide on how many resources, what resources, the timelines, the scope, what requirements are we going to test, that kind of things. And the third phase is design phase. And in this phase, the inputs are the requirements, the project plan, the QA plan, and the requirements document. And what's going to happen in this phase is the requirements gathered are translated into functional design document and technical design document. Functional design document is very close to what the user will see on the website. Technical design document is developed by the development team and it has details on how a certain software can be built using the technology that they have. Details like the programming language, information, the database information, all that is in there. And then the use cases are also created. The test plan and the QA plan, the project plan and the QA plan are also updated along with the requirements if there are any changes. People who are involved are PM, the BAs and the QA teams. The QA team's job at this phase is to write the test scenarios and be ready with them. And the next phase is the build phase. In the build phase, the code is developed. So basically, the code is unit tested and integration tested, which are again white box testing, which involves testing the code, and that's done by the dev team. And then the QA team will write the test cases. will create the pass or fail criteria. It will create the templates. It will do all the approvals. It will do all the reviews and be ready. And the code development here happens in the development environment. And in the test phase, a build is given to us. A build is nothing but a software version which is as close to the working product as we can get to. And this build is tested, and we report errors, and when the QA team provides the sign off, the next phase is for the users to test it. Users are the people who have actually requested for this product, and then the test once they are also okay with it and they approve it, the tested product gets ready for release. The teams who are involved here are the people who are involved are the QA team, the users, the dev team, BA, PM, and the support teams. And the whole test phase happens in the QA environment. Deploy phase is when the product is pushed into the real world, and that's the production environment. So the reason why I chose this to be the first topic is you get to see all the people who are involved. So now you know what a project manager does, what a QA team does, what a business analyst does, and who are the power users, and things like that. So the user involvement, the roles and responsibilities are clear. And then we also get to see what are the inputs at each stage. What are the inputs that you need to write your test plan. To write your test plan, you need resources. You need the requirements. You also need test scenarios for you to write the test cases. And you also got a glimpse of what a use case is. And then you know what happens in what stage. And we also got an introduction onto what is black box testing and what is white box testing, and what's unit testing, what's integration testing. So that's the reason why this topic is decided as the first one. And there are some, so if you see, it goes from build to initiate to define to design to, build to test and deployment. This is a very good model, but the only disadvantage is if we are in the build phase and there comes a new requirement, we'll have to start all over again from the beginning. That is one of the biggest drawbacks of this model of software development lifecycle. But most of the projects follow this method. We will next see the agile methodology in, like as I said, in class 3 or 4. But for now, this is the typical way in which all projects are, all project development process goes on. So, Amir, I am going to send you all these documents in an email. And Yemi, you had a question. You've seen a job description where the job was as a UAT, but you said is only the user that can do UAT. That happens in a lot of times. That happens a lot of times. The reason is most of the users, most of the power users, they find it, how do I put it? Either they are unavailable for UAT or there is just too much training involved. So this is in cases where the client also has a software team. For example, in this case, we have decided that the client will bring the problem to the software service provider to fix. But in most cases, the client also has a software division within themselves. So they also, so the product being developed is for their software team, but they just outsource it to a software service provider. So in that case, for the UAT, the users are again going to be software professionals. In that case, they don't want to use their own resources, but they want to use a software service provider's resources. That might be the case where you have seen the job description where you needed a tester to do UAT as well. But otherwise, normally UAT is done by the power users. Did I answer your question? Cool. Do you guys have any questions in any of these topics? Because I'll now open this session for Q&A. So if anybody has anything to say, I'll unmute them, and you can go ahead and talk, or chat is fine too. All right. So if you guys have no questions, it's time for today's assignment. So for assignment, I have to think. First thing is, I don't know any of your backgrounds, and I don't want this to be a class where I just talk about things and and I'm not sure if it's, if I'm talking about the right things or not. So I want to know a little bit of your background. I want to know things like your educational details. Amir, yes, it's also called a system lifecycle instead of software development lifecycle. That's true, yes. But the most common term used is SDLC. People often ask you what stage of SDLC are you at. So this is a most commonly used word, but system lifecycle is fine too. There is no rule that something has to be called something. It's just a nomenclature that is followed across the industry. So what I would like from you guys is your educational details. Do you have any prior IT experience? Do you have any prior IT experience, and are you already working in the QA industry? And any expectations from the class? These are the things. If you could write down and send it to me, that would be great. And the actual assignment, that's the first thing. The second thing is, I would like you to take any of the applications that you like. Which one shall we do? Probably take Gmail itself. Why don't you take Gmail and write down all the features that you see, at least 10 of them. Is everybody able to hear me? Everybody can hear me, Ruth. I'm not sure if you're having a problem or something. Are you still not able to hear me? I'm just going to write down. So even if you don't hear me, Ruth, so I think you'll be able to follow what I'm saying from what I'm writing here. So I want you to write at least 10 features of gmail.com, or pick any site that you're comfortable with. But this is what came to my mind. At least 10 features, write as elaborately as you can. For example, when you log in, you see the inbox with a number of new mails in the compose email. So I want you to notice every single detail. I mean, when you pick a feature, make sure that you write about it in really great detail. So go ahead and write 10 features of gmail.com and send it to me. And when you send it to me, please write these features in a document and attach it to the email along with your details. So that we can, I can actually tailor this class according to the needs. So I will tailor this class according to the needs, and we will discuss these requirements tomorrow, and we will work on how to come up with test scenarios and test cases and everything. Tomorrow's topic is going to be the V model. Karvasaran, do the assignment contain only normal or alternate? They can contain alternate scenarios also. So you use your creativity. You can do what you like. So write all the features. What I'm really trying to see is your attention to detail. It's not like I'm evaluating or anything, but requirements are something where the first step of testing starts. So I want you to come up with the requirement so that we will move on to the next steps.